Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned high performance coach. When odds are stacked against us, how do we shift and create everything from nothing? How do we level up when we aren't feeling it yet or we've had a big setback? On this podcast, I'll be talking to some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on this planet who at their worst learned how to achieve success greater than they ever dreamed possible. Leveling up and creating everything from nothing. Jennifer Gilbert was violently attacked in the worst imaginable way when she was just 22 years old. Her pain turned into purpose as she decided to live her life surrounded by joy and celebration instead of fear and coming from a place of victim and blame. What started as a passion and healing quest turned into a transformative, self-sustaining company. But Jennifer didn't stop there. She revolutionized the event planning world with clients such as Google, Oprah Winfrey, the YMCA, the Red Cross, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Interviewing Jennifer was a gift. I did not want to stop learning from her. Jennifer's not just a survivor, she is a true thriver. Join in today and learn exactly how Jennifer Gilbert leveled up and created everything from nothing.
Today on Leveling Up, I've got Jennifer Gilbert, and I'm so excited to interview her today because you may know her from her stint on The Real Housewives. You might know her from her fascinating book that was literally everywhere, or you might know her for her name in event coordinating and event planning. She's here today. I'm so excited to talk with you today, Jennifer. Thanks for being here.
I am so happy to be here.
So Jennifer, you've done so many things. People know you from so many different directions. Your book was literally everywhere. Like everyone knew that. And just to know that you were even on The Housewives, which is the buzz around everybody talking about that. Who were you before all this? Because there's just so much now. And I know that you were someplace and somebody totally different before all of this. Who were you?
Yes, actually, it's a pretty funny story. But going backwards, when I was 22, I had just graduated from college the year before. I was living in London and I didn't care what I did. I got a, working visa. I would have worked behind a bar in retail. It just so happens that I got a job working for a small production company in London. He hired me, the president, because I was a New Yorker from birth and I had no fear. And he would say, well, you may have to cold call. I was like, all right. And I actually found that I loved it. The more people would say no, I was like, the typical American that pushed harder, but always with a smile and a giggle. And I loved it. But I studied business in college and marketing, so it was right up my alley. And then I returned home, which was back to my parents' house because I had literally just, gotten back from London. And about 10 days later, I went to go visit my college roommate in New York City, and it was a beautiful day in May, and it was about 5:00, bright sunshine. I missed my stop. I got off the subway. I took the train to New York, and then I took the subway, thinking I took the tube in London all over the place. I could figure it out in my own country. And I missed my stop, and I was walking up the street, and unbeknownst to me, I was followed off the subway, and I walked into my friend's apartment building because the doors were propped open. And I always say that was sort of the day I lost my joy because I was followed and I was stabbed and assaulted 37 times with a screwdriver. And,
oh my gosh. Oh,
pretty much left for dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said it was this normal day and you're walking. Did you have any sense that someone was following you? Did anything at all? Any vibe, any feeling?
No idea.
Wow.
In fact, I was walking and there was all the windows in one of the stores. And I was looking at myself thinking, I'd just come back from London. I was this worldly traveler thinking, this is going to be my fabulous life. Like I'm going to put on a Donna Karan suit. This was back a while ago. And I'm going to take New York by storm. I'm going to go to Wall Street and I'm going to have this fabulous life.
Oh my gosh. So you walk in this apartment and what's happening? Like you walk in and is somebody grab you? Like what's going through your mind?
Yeah. I walked in and I'm a smiley, happy person. And
Sure.
I said hi to the two guys that were working on their motorcycles right outside. And I actually passed the building, realized I had passed it, turned around and walked back. And as I realized the building, I knew she lived on the first floor. And I walked in through the building. I made a right down the hallway and I was ringing the doorbell to her apartment. And as I was waiting there, I heard a noise and I looked down to my left, and in the corridor, sort of casing the wall, meaning their whole left side was sort of pushed up against the wall, I saw a man. And I thought, this is very strange because there were only two apartments. This is my mind thinking.
Yeah.
One was right in front of me and one was right behind me. So he was going to literally bump into me. And I had a feeling he wasn't going where I was going. So something felt weird.
Yeah.
And then I looked at him. I kind of pushed the doorbell a few more times. And then I looked at him again. And all I can tell you is that I saw his head down and his eyes were looking up at me. So I sort of saw his forehead and eyes. And when I tell you, I saw hate.
Wow.
It wasn't like sexy looking. It was just this
pure hate. Wow.
Yeah. I had like a complete involuntary shudder.
Yeah.
And I'm pushing the doorbell, thinking like, come on, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And I'm just perfectly still, as far into the door as I could possibly be. I would almost fall into the door.
Sure.
And the next thing I knew, I felt like, bam, like 3 really hard punches in my head.
Wow.
And I was shocked, and I, sort of took a breath, and it's so crazy what you think and what you remember. But I remember thinking, oh my God, he's trying to mug me. Like I'm back in New York for 1 minute. So I took my bag and I threw it as far away from me as I could down the hall.
Thinking
like,
he wants
take
that.
it. Yes. And he didn't move. And sort of the next thing I knew, he got me down to the ground and he was laying on top of me. And all I knew was that he was punching me, sort of looking like he was punching me in the face. And I kept moving my head side to side, thinking, protect your face.
Yeah.
And at some point, I looked up and I saw my friend had opened the door. Now, she was inside her apartment. It was a beautiful day. The music was blasting. I don't know if the air conditioning or the windows were open. She didn't hear anything but the doorbell.
Right.
So she comes to open the door to let me in. She looks down. She sees me laying in a pool of blood with a man on top of me with his hand just sort of like, as you would imagine, up and down. And she freaked out.
Yeah.
Shut the door and went back inside her apartment.
Whoa.
I didn't remember that at all. I just remembered seeing her, and I remember thinking, like, I have to get up.
Yeah.
As this was all going on,
I'm assuming she was in shock too, in a different way, but not knowing what
completely.
to do.
So simultaneously, I all of a sudden felt something going in my thigh.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, wait a minute. This is not punching. I'm being stabbed. And that's when I realized, I started screaming to my friend, oh my God, he's stabbing me. Please help me. Somebody help me. I mean, I was screaming the entire time.
Yeah.
And I was fighting. And so I knew I had to get him off of me. And I don't know how, but I got this 250-pound man off of me. And the next thing I kind of remember was my friend. Now, when she closed the door, I did not know this then. I only found it out much later. She went in to tell her 4 roommates what was happening outside. And because she was in such shock, she had lost her voice.
Oh my gosh.
She couldn't speak.
Yeah.
To tell them. And I think at some point she must have remembered or heard me and went back to open the door. And when she opened it, I remember her, and I was on my feet and I pushed the door open and I ran in thinking, oh my God, okay, I'm saved. And I heard her screaming something to this man. And I turned around behind me and he was now in the apartment.
Oh my gosh.
I looked back and I thought, oh my God, I'm dead. He's going to kill me. And I'm running down her hallway. Her bedroom was right off the front door. So she went into her bedroom and closed the door and locked it. And I had no choice but to run down this sort of long hallway to a square room. I mean, there was nowhere for me to go. And as I was running, I was frantically looking for anything. I remember throwing like a marble chess set behind me at him. And all there was a sofa, sort of on the opposite side of the room. And I got up on the sofa and I had maybe a footstep on him. I mean, it wasn't even a full second. And, I went to go sort of kick him wherever personally I could hurt him the most, if you know what I mean. And he grabbed my foot, he spun me around and he sat on top of me on my stomach facing my feet. And I will not go into other gory details except for the fact that I had no idea what was happening. I had no pain, but I was screaming and I saw, red, like my blood all over this white sofa. And but I was screaming and punching and I never, ever once gave up, not for a second. And then the next thing I know, literally he gets off of me without a sound and runs out the door and I heard it close behind him.
Wow.
Now, I did not know that when my friend went to go say something to the roommates, I did not know there were roommates. I didn't know that when I ran in, there were 5 women in that room who all ran out. I didn't even see them. This is how laser focused I was. So, he ran out and I got up and I had no skirt on. I mean, it was a mess anyway. And I told my friend to come out of her room. And, after that, it was hospital and ambulance and multiple stab wounds. And it was just crazy. I mean, I was 22 years old.
Wow. Wow, Jennifer. Oh my gosh. So I can't even, I'm speechless on this. And I can't even imagine how you begin to piece that together, recover, forget. I mean, all of it, wondering why you survived, why he did it.
Exactly. I mean, I have to say that was the darkest, obviously darkest portion of my life. I had so many different emotions. It's hard to even, but part of me was like, why? The other part of me is like, what have I ever done in my life to deserve this? The other part of me was like, okay, my life is over. I have no more joy. I'm soulless. I'll never smile again. Also, I looked crazy. I mean, I had 37 punctures, stab wounds, cuts all over my leg, my head. When he was punching me in the beginning, it was actually stabbing me and it was a screwdriver. I mean, physically, I was a disaster with scars and, couldn't walk for weeks. I mean, I had been punched in the face. It was just
unimaginable.
Horrible. Yeah. And I was just in complete and total shock. And it turns out that it was sort of a serial attack. He was a paroled murderer. He had attacked somebody 2 days before me, which was just a few sort of wounds. Then me, and then there was a woman after me, but there were no witnesses and she didn't see anything. This was all over the news, the Guardian Angels. It was all over the news stations, but this is before there was Google. So it never made any real records. But that was a pretty low spot of my life.
Very low. How did you even begin to pick up the pieces and the meaning to that? Where do you start? How do you not give up?
As soon as I started to physically heal, I know this is going to sound insane, but I felt I could not stay at my parents. It was just, we didn't know how to talk to each other. So we walked around each other.
Mhm.
They didn't bring it up at all. And I was looking around thinking, am I crazy? Did this just happen to me?
Wow.
They didn't want to bring it
Yeah.
up because they didn't want me to get more upset. And I was waiting for them to bring it up because I was being strong for them. They were
Sure.
being it just was crazy. And, what happens afterwards when people started to find out was, I wrote a chapter in my book about this called, about at leasting.
Uh-huh.
People absolutely mean the best, but they have no idea what to say to you when this has happened. So you get a lot of at least he didn't blah, at least you weren't
Wow.
raped, at least. And I'm sitting there with 37 stab wounds at 22 years old, my
Yeah.
face a mess, my body a mess, wondering if I'm ever going to get over this, thinking he may as well have killed me.
Yeah.
And people are telling me how it could have been worse.
Yeah. Oh my
So it
gosh.
made me feel like I should be thankful about this thing. And I just wasn't ready at that
No.
point. So I
No.
needed to literally run away. I packed my car 2.5 months later and I moved to Boston.
Mm. Were you scared? Did you feel like, I'm just so many things going through my mind. Like, were you scared of, is this going to happen again? Were you scared?
I was a maniac. I mean, while I was still in New York and they hadn't caught anybody, I thought he was hiding in my parents' car. Like I
Wow.
had to sleep with the lights on. I had to have somebody in the room with me. I mean, I am not a fearful person. I had just come from literally hitchhiking around Europe after London with 2 girlfriends. And I now was, I thought he was everywhere I went. I thought it was an irrational fear, but of course expected. And I just, I had to go into the city. I had to do lineups. I had to do a composite photo. I mean, there were a lot of things I had to get through. And I just wouldn't really let myself sort of cry. I was very strong for everyone else,
Wow.
but I was outside of myself. It was a very,
Yeah.
very surreal experience. So I just had to leave because I thought I was going crazy.
How do you begin to heal that? Like, did you get into therapy? Did you work on post-traumatic stress? Like, or was it just literally escaping? Like, how do you even begin to, and I also want to know what would have been the right thing for people to have done or said.
Yes, that's a great question. And I don't know whether I did this right or wrong because there is no right and wrong. There's just what people have experienced. For me, I needed to shut it off completely. I moved to Boston and I don't even know what I was thinking. I don't remember the name of the street. I don't remember what I even did there for a couple of months. I may have volunteered. I may have had a job. I honestly have blocked it out completely. Yep. I do remember, however, one morning I was laying in my bed and I remember I had the top. Okay, this is crazy. I went from my family and my hometown where I knew everybody and had support to driving to a city I have never lived in and pulled a roommate needed off a sheet at like BU or something. And I moved into a room of strangers. So go figure that.
Yeah.
And I was in my room where I basically had like a bed and a box.
Yeah.
And of my things. I mean, and I remember one day I was waking up and I was looking out the window and everybody had somewhere to go. People were going to school or going to work. I was in a college town, I guess, or area. And I am looking out the window thinking, what is going on? What am I doing? What am I doing? This is my life. And if this man has made me like deviate from my fabulous life and my plan at all, then he may as well have killed me because then he won. And that was literally the day that I said, get up. You picked the wrong girl. And I just said, okay, enough. And I packed up my bag. I put everything I brought with me in my car. And when I tell you I packed up my emotional baggage, and I left it there. I like put it in the back of a
Mm-hmm.
closet, of a shelf, in a room and a street. I don't even remember. And I said, I will never go there again. And for 20 years, I never spoke about it ever publicly to anybody.
Mm.
So
How does that work with you though? Because I would imagine your body, we all hear about body keeping the score and just that bearing down that emotion. I mean, you were violated in the worst possible way, and people were sweeping it under the rug or not handling it well. And then you sort of taught yourself, well, I'm not going to act like it didn't happen in a way.
Yes, I went into, and the thing that I speak to a lot of, I don't want to say victims, because if you say that about me, I get like very upset because I'm a survivor and a warrior,
Yeah.
But I was someone who was, a product of a bad circumstance. And that could be, we all have a story. This is mine. And people think, oh my God, what happened to me isn't nearly as bad as what happened to you. And I say, stop. We don't compare wounds or stories or hurts. It is all relative to what someone has gone through in their life. So there's no better or worse. There's no, I feel I'm entitled to feel worse than you did. I don't believe in that. I think that we're all in it together,
Yeah.
And I think that for me, I was in fight mode. I mean, and I don't blame, most of the time when I tell people about my friend that closed the door or when I wrote about it, that was the most emails and comments and talk shows. I mean, people, it was like a collective gasp when I was on the Today Show or I was on, a talk show. And I said, I never blame her because nobody would know what they would do in that situation. There's no blame. So I think for me personally, I fought. When this happened, the police said to me, only 7% of women fight back. 7%.
Wow.
So I went into, fight. I didn't have the flight mode because I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I just sort of kept that fighting inertia for a very long time. It wasn't.
Did you ever try to make meaning of it, or have you made meaning of it? How do you even do?
Well, I will tell you the steps. I did not go to therapy, not because I didn't really want to, but because at that time with my family, it just did. We went once. It was not a good experience for me or my family. And I was like, that was the end of that. So, but when I moved back to New York, I just wanted to start totally fresh, but I wasn't. I mean, I smiled and I put my armor on, which I call my like red lipstick back then. But in my soul, I felt dead. And I thought I'll just never have joy again. And I will have to sort of find it in other people and other situations. So I thought, okay, I would have gone into Wall Street. I was a businesswoman at heart. And I thought, well, that's gone. I want to be around people celebrating because what I learned is we only have today.
Yes.
We have no idea or control over what is going to happen. And that was a big lesson that I've learned only in the last recent, maybe 10 years. But for the years before that, I went into, that's separate. Emotionally, I went into complete control mode.
Yes.
But, with my sort of healing, I said, well, I want to be around people celebrating because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that's important. And I thought, well, who celebrates? Now, this is way back when there were no event planner jobs.
Sure.
Now there's certificates, but that was not even a profession or a career move. So I thought, well, people get married. Like that's happy. So I literally looked up and tried to find anybody who was a wedding planner or a, special occasions. And I got 2 jobs, one working at a large company in their sort of corporate events department, which, was a great job. I got offered a lot of money and benefits, but it didn't exactly hit the spot. And I got another job working for a 2-person wedding planning company at,
Okay.
$18,000 plus commission. And I said, I'm going to try that one. So I really started to sort of piece my life back together by really fixing and thinking about other people's celebrations and being an integral part of it. And that soothes me in a lot of ways. And it also, it helped heal me. And I thought, well, maybe by like osmosis someday, I'll be able to experience this for myself. So that was kind of my first thoughts into how to heal my soul from the worst thing that could happen.
Wow. Wow.
Eventually, my business acumen came back in. I found a different way of doing business within my industry. And then that was my business plan that rolled out from there.
Wow.
But I went for passion, and I went for enjoyment, and I went for true meaning in my life as like a calling.
Yeah.
And, then I found the business in it.
I'm at a loss for words because I've never heard somebody take such a tragic event and turn it around that way, in that direction, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, it was pretty. And the fact that no one knew. My employees didn't know. My clients didn't know. My friends that I met
You kept it hidden. You hid it.
Nobody knew. And in my book, I talk about these, crazy things I did to myself to sort of control, punish, but yet remind, and all these things I had to do because my body was full of scars and how I protected these things, but also the juxtaposition of these insane over the top events, that I planned on the outside and these crazy, funny stories. And it was almost like a Sex in the City meets event planner life. But my inner self was so juxtaposed that nobody would ever know from looking at me really who I was. It taught me a lot about judgments. It taught me a lot about never, ever making a judgment call on anybody. It taught me a lot about life and
you
priorities.
never know someone's story. You never know their background. You never know where they're coming from.
Yep. There's a couple of quotes like, you never know what battle people are dealing with inside. So just be kind. It's like even someone who's doesn't seem personable or gruff. And I'm sure I made so many mistakes of maybe being aloof or seeming unfriendly or intimidating. And I was so the opposite, but nobody ever knew because I just kept it buried.
Yeah. Wow. So bringing out your story and sharing it and talking about it, what did you find in that? Did that help you heal?
People ask me, and I thought, well, when I write it, it will be cathartic, which actually was not the case because it was a project and I'm a perfectionist, and, it was a big story because I needed to get my words, my truth, my story out. And it was just still me, right? So, the writing part of it was just my own little moment, which I had been in myself for 20 years.
Yes.
It wasn't until I started to speak about it and I would talk about it on shows or, in front of 3,000 person audience where sometimes I could say it and I was looking at a movie. I had no emotional connection to it because that's how it was in my mind. And once in a while, I would start talking and all of a sudden, my throat would catch and I would start to cry, which was so incredibly horrifying, mortifying, humiliating, and humbling. And it was an incredible lesson for me because when I showed my vulnerability and my pain, it was unbelievable, the outpouring of people that wanted to hug emotionally or, intellectually or physically hug me and share themselves and how it really made me take an exhale, probably for the first time in
Wow.
years and years and years.
It's amazing. I feel that there is most people that we come across that have that controller, high drive, control personality. People will tend to view them as, they're arrogant or they don't have feelings, or they put them in this bubble of like, they'll do anything at all costs. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
interesting.
I think I was probably in that for people that would just
Yeah.
view me.
Yeah.
And especially
Yeah.
in business. I mean, I was all business. I started my company when I was 25 years old.
Mhm.
I had, it blew up. I mean, I flipped the business model. I went on my own. 3 years later, I was doing $8 million of business. I had all these employees. I won Entrepreneur of the Year, sponsored by Ernst & Young. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't even have time to stop and think about how to be. I didn't know
Yeah.
how to be.
Yeah. And what's so interesting is people will judge that. They see that. And what I've also found, and you've probably noticed this too, is that the people that fit that profile, that usually it's because of a pain. It's because of something. So now they are protecting, and they are protecting themselves and others. So they jump into that. And when you open up the vulnerability and the share and you're authentic and you tell, it's amazing the heartfelt that comes from that, and how people view you differently then.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I mean, I think even after the book came out and I was doing all these talking, you know, shows and speeches, I think that was one more thing that I could get caught up in,
Mm-hmm.
to still not really
Yeah.
feel. It was just another project. It was
Yeah.
another thing to plan. It was another goal. And
Because you don't have to
I
deal with
was
your own feelings because you're doing that.
absolutely. And I really went from goal to goal to goal
Mhm.
without breathing. I don't even think I reveled in what I had created or my
Mhm.
successes. I mean, I rolled out my company into 5 offices in 5 cities. I mean, and I just, whenever I received something or got something, I didn't even stop to reflect. I just
Yeah.
was like, next, you know, I call it like I kind of ran from FU energy,
Yeah.
to this person. And I was always like, I'm here, God damn
Mhm.
it, and I'm gonna prove it. I'm gonna be better. I'm
Yeah.
gonna, you know, and that was so exhausting. I mean, I was a body in motion. I was inertia
Mhm.
until, of course, you hit the proverbial wall, and then everything crumbles. So,
And I would imagine when you were in that other spot, the chase, the nothing's enough, and I'm just going to be all business, Jennifer, I would imagine that you probably frowned upon, maybe I'm wrong, but frowned upon like, oh, that person's weak if they need therapy, or they're like, get over it. I've done this. Did you ever have that
actually,
conversation?
no, which is really interesting. I never judged anyone else's pain
Mm,
because I knew, and everyone deals in their own way.
yeah. Well, that's unbelievable. So then you realize, okay, so you realize that your pattern that you were chasing,
Insecure and
creating.
afraid. Yeah. And
Yeah.
just terrified that I would
Yeah.
fully have a nervous breakdown. I mean, people that knew, said, if you moved to Iowa and lived in a silo, nobody would blame you. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, what kind of life is that? Like, then I'm running and hiding forever.
Yeah.
That's not me. And if I become that, then, what's it all for?
So how did you change that pattern when you recognized it? Because now you developed years of that chase and knowing that new identity. How do you, and you
Hmm.
start seeing this isn't working. This isn't what I want. How do you
Hmm.
shift and change that? Because it almost becomes its own addiction that you don't know how to not chase and create and build.
Yes, exactly. Well, interestingly enough, this huge sort of shift. I mean, I was doing a lot outwardly, I guess. I
Hmm.
mean, I was in really good shape. I would go to sort of seminary things. I did a lot on my business and became very informed and educated and studied. I mean, I went to a program, I got into a program called Birthing of Giants, which was held with a
Hmm.
partnership with MIT. And, so for me, it was like focus, focus, focus. But
Hmm.
it wasn't until I had twin boys, and it wasn't until my sons were about a year old that, the other sort of shoe dropped in my life. because I always say, once something bad happens, it's not like your name is plucked out of the fishbowl of never happen again, throw it over there.
Mm-hmm.
You are right back in that bowl with everyone else. I mean,
Sure.
and so my son, I have twins, they're very fraternal, but one of my sons, longer story, but he lost a lot of his hair when he was 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then it came back, and then it happened again when he was 2. And after really going everywhere in the world to try to fix this and control it, of course, he was diagnosed with alopecia, which a lot of people don't know about, but it's an autoimmune where
Yep.
your hair sort of comes and goes. And here I was, I've had my before and after in my life, which is what I call it, sort of the before attack
Sure.
and after the attack. And here he was at 2.5 years old, completely bald now, and he was going to have his before and after.
Yeah.
So I am literally watching my son go through something traumatic, but it's not traumatic to him. He had no idea if he had hair or not. He was 2.5, happy kid. But for me, I was slowly losing my mind with every hair that fell out.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could have willed his hair to grow, I took on a whole new mission,
Well, you took on a life of control to protect you, and now you couldn't control this.
Exactly. So I went into some sort of funk, but still like doing my job and running around and smiling, but not really. Like every moment in my head, every thought was, oh my God, my kid's bald. What am I going to do? How am I going to fix this? Is he ever going to have a life? Is it going to be teased? What's going to happen? And I started to journal. And what was coming up was a lot of pain for me from years before that I never dealt with. I never even let myself feel.
Sure.
And so once I started to journal and document this, it actually really helped me because I started to see, oh my God, I thought I have evolved in these 20 years. And here I am ignoring the elephant in the room, which is exactly what my parents did for me.
Wow. That's insightful.
Oh my God, I am creating this again. And thank God he was only, 2.5. But I caught it. And I thought, I have to stop this right now, because if I bring my shame, and that's really what it was, I felt victimized. I felt shame because I never talked about it. So it was so internal that if I bring my shame into his little life, then all he's going to know is shame, because his only reality is my reality. And if I make it okay for him, it will be okay for all of us. But it was a huge paradigm shift for me. It changed everything. Because as much as someone can say, you can't control anything, you have to let go, but my power and my control was in the fight. Like someone said, you can't have it for this price. I was like, oh, yes, I can. Somebody said, you can't open up the city. I was like, you watch me. I was that girl. And what I realized with my son after I had, 25, hysterically crying on the floor, sort of nervous breakdowns, was that I thought my power was in the fight. And I realized that the real power is in the surrender.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I used to spin, soul cycle, run, and the last mile, I would sprint like until death. I mean, I would almost not be breathing, but I was like, I can do this. Like I would torture myself, in so many ways, in food, in exercise, in my rules, in my dress. I mean, it was, and then I realized, like, what's it doing? All the stuff that I did, I can't control my kid's hair. Like, there's nothing I can do to worry about something that may or may not happen. So I have to let this go and accept that whatever is going to be, I can approach it from fear or I can approach it from joy. Because you can't control it. All you can do is control the ride until you're there. And it changed everything for me. And I realized I needed to start to write this down. I didn't tell my story because I thought, wow, it's time for me to share. I mean, it was 20 years. I would have kept it a secret probably forever. But what really made me write it down was the fact that I didn't realize the cycle that I was creating, and that, realizing that we can't control anything but our sort of
Mm-hmm.
attitude
Mm-hmm.
was the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if my sort of story or thoughts or emotions could help somebody else figure that out, because I was a
Yeah.
memoir reader. When I was in such destitute pain, I read a lot, and I read a lot of memoirs because I identified with whoever was having the trauma.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, there's somebody else who's felt what I felt, and it's real. And so I thought, well, if I write down my story and anybody can get something from it, well, then they will. So it was this sort of weird confluence of my business really taking off and had been, I created this new industry, but also the fact that from what happened, I became an event planner,
Mm-hmm.
and I never spoke about it. So it was just this weird sort of,
Yeah.
triangle of all these things coming together. And it was the right time for me.
Wow. So many just powerful lessons and interesting, like, perspectives that came from something so tragic and so painful. And it's interesting. I just love your perspective on how that's really truly shaped your life and your decisions, and even your son with his diagnosis, just the lessons and how that's brought you so full circle. How do you today now, like, how do you control both those instincts? Like, how do you control the desire to push down emotions or ignore pain? And also, how do you surrender to the need to control? How do you have to remind yourself? Is it,
I do. I mean, my tendency is to just swallow,
Mhm,
and or believe that I can outwit, outthink, outperform, you know, some uncontrollable thing. I mean, listen,
mhm,
I went into event planning, right? It's the
mhm.
illusion of control. Like, you set up every single
Yeah,
detail and it rains on your tent. I mean, what
yeah,
can you do?
yeah,
My favorite saying is, we plan and God laughs. I mean,
yeah.
so, but that not only did I find the perfect profession because it soothed me to see people laughing and dancing and kissing and hugging and enjoying, but all the little controlling of the details and being in the center of it, and suited my personality
Mhm.
completely, and also soothing other people, saying, I got it and you can
Yeah,
count on me, and all of those things. I mean, it definitely built for a great
yeah.
career and business, but it took its toll on me emotionally for a very long time. It is still difficult for me to be needy.
Uh-huh.
Did you hear that? For me to be needy? I didn't even
Yeah,
say to need people. See,
yeah,
needy,
yeah.
because it feels like a
You put
bad
it on you.
thing.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that was such a slip. How funny is that? Not
Uh-huh.
funny, haha. But it's
Yeah.
still difficult for me to ask for help sometimes. It's
Mhm,
still difficult for me to say, you can call people and say, I just need right now.
mhm,
It's not my go to place,
mhm.
but I have been able to find people and situations where I can be vulnerable. It's still sometimes yuck for me, but I'm better at it.
Mhm.
And when I find myself getting into that headspace, the first thing I do is I breathe, because
Mm.
it's really shocking how sitting down and just honestly taking a deep breath to calm your body and your neurons and your nerves and
Mhm.
your breath. And also, I think I almost did not have that luxury of breathing. I mean,
Yeah,
I really, really at one point looked at my surgeon in the hospital and I said, tell my family I love them. I mean, I really thought I was.
yeah.
And so when I take a deep breath, and I realize I'm here, I'm breathing, it's all okay, and that I can only do what I can do. And that, I have a very tricky relationship with fear. So I have a different way of dealing with it. I really just have to like lower my pulse and blood pressure and just in myself first. And then I'm like, okay, what can I do that's
Yeah.
useful? And worrying about it, I don't go backwards. Even with arguments now, like, you know, I forgive, I let it go. I don't even remember it. I get into a fight with somebody or an argument and I say, ow, that really hurt my feelings, or why, did something happen? Or I will tell them, ooh, why'd you do that? That really hurt my feelings or something. Most people are really taken aback
Yeah.
because, most people avoid conflict. And
Yeah.
I say, I'm only in it for the conflict resolution. Who cares about, like, I'm
Yeah.
not doing
You're not
this
trying to
just
be
to
right.
fight.
You're not trying to be right.
Mm-mm.
You just want to resolve it. Yeah.
I just want it over because literally when I say what's on my mind and we come to I'm sorry, or an honest, like, Jen, you did this and you didn't even realize it. And I feel horribly because I would never maliciously hurt somebody, but people are self-absorbed and I've only had so much bandwidth sometimes and I have hurt people and I don't realize it, you know? And so from there, once it's sort of okay, I don't even remember a bad thing anymore. I literally move on.
Yeah.
I don't have enough energy to carry bad juju,
So
I say.
I do have a question about, like, why did you choose to do a reality show? Because that's like the opposite of control to me. Like,
Uh-huh.
you don't control how they edit. You don't control how you're portrayed. You are very open and out there. How did that happen? And what was your conversation around that?
Yes, great questions. So originally, before there was even a Real Housewife, there were different shows that were being, sort of talked about in Bravo. And one was called The Real Working Women of New York City. And they went to myself and some of my real friends who were moms and running businesses. And we really thought it was more going to be like just a really how-to documentary kind of thing, not a reality show.
Sure.
And then the title changed to other things. And, I was out, never thought about it again. Years later, my girlfriend had said, they're recasting, you should go on this show. And I said, like, I had never watched it since.
Yeah.
And this is before my book. This was at a time where, the whole world was falling apart financially.
Yep.
And I had 3 babies pretty much. And my ex-husband was at a firm at that time that didn't survive. And so I was like, okay, mama's got to go back to work right now. And I wasn't thinking about the book necessarily, but I thought, well, I need a little heft to get my business back on track. And if corporations aren't doing events right now, I need to get some exposure or social events. And,
Sure.
I was going on, the first season was really just me. I was the event planner for one of the women. And I was, not going to get into the drama. I was hired to be me, not to be, a housewife with an apple. And I thought, well, the only thing I can control in this situation is my mouth. So if I just stay away from the drama and do not get involved, I'll be the most boring human being on the show. But, I'll make it through, which I did. I mean, my friends that know me laugh hysterically and they're like, why didn't you speak up? And I said, that was not the purpose,
Yeah, because you knew it could be taken and edited or changed around, or who knows.
Yes, I've had those experiences with other things where, you basically sign that they can take any sentences you say, put it in a different order, have somebody else say them. I mean, I was very worried. Also, at the same time, I had started writing, my treatment and journaling. So I thought, well, it's not a bad time to at least just shop a deal and see. And when I was talking about, my book, I never mentioned the show in my book. And on the show, I never mentioned my book. Most people go on the show to promote something. And I was there to promote, yes, what I did for a living, but not the worst thing that ever happened to me and not my book. These were completely separate. And so when I was, meeting with publishers, they said, this is a real book, Jen. Like, this is a real book. And, we kind of need you to be in your job and in your life. And I said, okay. And, I had a great time. I have to tell you, it was like great and stressful. I mean, it was a bucket list and a check. I mean, I had never, ever done anything like this before. it was definitely an experience, probably the most stressful of my life. And I was, happy to say goodbye and go back to my party planning life.
Yeah.
But it was quite funny.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I love your stories. I love your journey. So your event coordinating business now, you had mentioned to me before we started recording that it was offline initially, and that's all you knew. It was before the internet. How did
Yes.
you became cutting edge with bringing that online? How did
It's
that
really
idea
funny.
you?
I'll tell you, people think, oh, you're a party planner or you're a caterer, or, and I just smile and say yes, because that's the short answer. The longer answer was, the 90s, there was no computer, AOL, Google, anything. And everything was, Yellow
Yeah.
Pages. And so here I was working for a company that was doing events. And, I started to think, and my job was sort of to cultivate a corporate market. So when I was calling all of these companies saying, I'd love to plan your event, hire me, they would say, honey, you just missed the 80s first. And I was like, yeah, I've heard. And they said, well, as much as we would love to hire you, because I can't leave my desk and I have no idea like where to bring my Christmas party or my partner's dinner, we just don't have the money. I would have to be very creative on how to sort of get them to pay my fee. And I would sit with CEOs sometimes and say, well, what are you paying in overtime for, either your assistant or HR or somebody to plan the party. But it was a difficult sell.
Yeah, so you're really taking on the responsibility and control for everyone and everything. Like not only are you doing this stuff, you're taking on how are they going to pay for me, which is it's interesting. You really take full responsibility.
I was working on commission for this company. So if I wasn't bringing in accounts, like I was going to make $18,000, which was not the plan. So what happened is, after 2.5 years, I really started to build up quite a following. And it was an interesting time because while I was doing this, I got to know all the venues. I was young. I started doing what I did at 22, 23. So I was out every night. I was at the clubs. I was, learning about venues. And they would say, Jennifer, we're dying over here. Bring us a party. We'll upgrade their bar. We'll give them an extra, entree. And I thought, these corporations and these nonprofits need venues and places to have their parties. And all of these unique spaces and lofts and nightclubs and private rooms have no way of reaching these people. It was a very fragmented industry. So I started the first marketplace. I said, okay, I flipped the business model. I said that I will be free to the corporations or the nonprofits, and I will be supported by the vendors. So it was, a monthly fee. And they, I was like, okay, let's see how this works. And by month 3, I had hundreds of venues calling me saying, how do we get on your list?
Wow.
I was like, you pay? I mean, I was 25 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. And, I would bring like a $60,000 party and the guy would say, here's $500, kid, thanks. And I was like,
wow,
that doesn't really seem great. I mean, but this is how it started. And so, I started 25. By 28, I was doing $8 million of business, and I was,
that's unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. But, we created a marketplace, and I was so, it's funny because I say I'm not computer literate at all, but yet I customized a database, which was a Salesforce before there was a Salesforce. I created my own client management software because I tracked every single thing about the event. So when I would see, a new venue that could fit 200 people, I had in my database every party for 200 people. So I could directly market a space to them. I mean, I created this whole sort of churning wheel when nobody was doing this.
Too, like before we even started recording, we were making a little joke with each other about not liking technology or being that. But it goes to show when you've got a passion and purpose and drive on something, you'll figure it out. Like you do.
I didn't know how to create it or code it, but I knew exactly what I wanted to see. And I knew exactly what I needed from my customers, my clients, the data, and how we could be most useful to both my clients, right? Because my clients are the venues because they're paying me, and my clients are the end users because they call me. So we were managing, we were sort of building 2 marketplaces at the same time and being the conductor between them. Wow. It was a lot, but it was great. I mean, it was great. It still is. So that's, 50% of my business still, and the other 50% is full on consulting because, it's funny. I got away from that, but people say, well, we don't want you to just find the venue. We don't want you to just, dump us
Mhm.
off at a place. We want you to plan the whole thing. And I remember I was like, well, that's not my business plan. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have to charge you. And they were like, charge us,
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, then we started, now we do events all over the country, all over the world. We do really large clients, and we have both sides of my business.
This is incredible. And it's savethedate.com, correct?
It's savethedate.com. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Wow. What a journey. What a journey. And I just love how you turned such pain into such purpose. You really did in an interesting way, but you did.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's a survival story. I mean, it was a survival of
yeah,
my soul,
I almost feel like survival isn't even the right word for you. It's like an empowerment story. Like survival to me, you're so much more than survival. Like you've changed the trajectory of like not just your life, but other people as an example. And I look
Thank
at you
you.
as an empowerment expert, really. Like,
I used to stand in the middle of one of my holiday parties, right? There were like 2,000 people.
uh-huh.
And all these people were dancing and laughing and singing. And then I thought about the commerce, right?
Hmm.
All the waiters and the waitresses and the flowers and all these people that were enjoying and all these people that were employed by
Hmm.
something I did. And I
Yeah.
cannot tell you the joy
Yeah.
and the pride that it gave me.
Yeah.
It really saved my life.
Yeah.
My company really saved my life.
That's why I see empowerment from you. Because survivor to me feels very isolating and alone. Like you're just
Yes, you're
getting
right.
by. And you're so
Yes.
much bigger than that and so much more than that. And I think it's just, you're such a great example.
Let's
Um,
call it a thriver.
I
Instead of a
like that.
survivor, a
I like
thriver.
Thriver. Yeah, Survivor. Well, I'm not going to change your whole. I won't change your whole gig and what you've been saying, obviously. But I just when I listen to you, I'm like, she's not a survivor. She's so much more than that.
Thank
It's
you.
really an
Takes one to know one.
it's an incredible journey. I'm going to ask where people can find you in your book and everything else. And I could interview you
Sure.
for hours. I just love talking with you. I do want to know if somebody's listening right now and they're going through their own personal rock bottom. I mean, really anything. And they've been victimized. They've been, whatever it is, their own personal rock bottom.
Mhm.
Knowing what you know now, whether it's how
Yeah.
you did it or what you would do now, like knowing what you know now, what would you tell somebody if you were to tell them like kind of 3 things that they can do to start healing and leveling up and creating something from nothing?
Yes. I mean, by the way, if anyone is going through anything listening, please email me. I return every email that I get.
Wow, that's
And
super generous.
it's all these years later. And
Yeah.
it really helps me. And I cry. Like I have such
Yeah.
empathy that I really, you know, would love to hear from anybody.
So
They can
generous
go
of
on
you. Yeah.
my Instagram and my Facebook, and they can go into savethedate.com. There's always like a, talk to
Hmm.
us or whatever. But
Hmm.
I would say really the first thing is to, I would say breathe, but I mean, breathe if you extend it into let yourself feel whatever you're feeling. You know, you're allowed to have your moment and your pain, and people want to try to take it away because they love you and they feel for you and they really want to make you better, but sometimes it doesn't help. It's a weird place to be. So just, honor yourself and, you know, give yourself sort of I don't want to say pity party, but for a second, let yourself just feel whatever it is. And then say, okay, like I said, I had my moment of enough, and if it's writing your story down or everything you want or everything you're mad at, and you literally burn it, you
Hmm.
flush it, you bury it, you throw it into the sea. I think sometimes just getting it out on paper really helped me. Um, and even if it's your wants and your wishes, and I think it's just a start of writing things down because I think, kind of what gets measured gets done.
Hmm.
So really putting it down. Um, and I think that really understanding that things happen so outside of our control and forgiving yourself for whatever situation you think you were to blame.
Mm.
Because I thought about, what did I do? Did I look at him? Did I wear something? I thought about this for years and years. What could I have done? Did I
Hmm.
hear him? And there's no point. It happened.
Yeah.
Um,
And do you know or care what happened to him, by the way?
Oh, yes. There was a big trial 3 years later. He was convicted of attempted murder, and he was sentenced to 27 years without parole, which it was last May, but he's up for parole this May.
Wow.
Yeah, in a few months. Yeah. So, that's another emotional sticking point for me, but I'm okay, you know. But yes, he was put away. So I did get vindication in some way.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't. But it's really, really sort of forgiving yourself and then finding a path to move on and trying to just really understand that it's a paradigm flip, that you can't control it and that you can't go backwards. That we all have the power to just breathe it out and let it go, because if not, it is a cloud that we are never going to be able to get out of to see the light. I mean, I heard this story. I'm sure other people have heard it, but, there's different iterations of it. But I remember hearing, if there's like the angel on one side and the devil on the other of your shoulders, which one wins? And of course, it's the one you feed. So if you fear, if you feed the fear and you fear the darkness, well, it's going to win. And if you just, put it away and just feed the light and the future and what you can do, life shifts and you eventually, get there.
Wow.
So, I mean, everyone's journey is totally different, but, I think sometimes to honor yourself and realize that you're okay, you're here, it happened, it was real. And now you have the control to just say goodbye to it too.
Yeah. So powerful. Wow.
Ooh. Oh, and my book is called I Never Promised You a Goodie Bag, which is really funny.
I never promised you a goodie bag.
Yes. As the event planner, people will kill themselves for a goodie bag on the way out the door. And it's just enjoy where you are now. Stop looking for the present at the end. Be here now.
Yeah. A memorable life through events the ones you plan and the ones that you don't.
Yep, exactly.
Wow. Where do you want people to look for you, find you? You said savethedate.com. You can get her book. I'm assuming anywhere. Really.
On Amazon. Yep. And my Instagram is Jen Gilbert, NYC. So you can always find me there, direct message.
I just followed you right now.
Thank you. And my company is at Save the Date NYC. So we're around, and really, I'm happy to speak to anybody or help or discuss or whatever.
You're amazing, Jennifer. Thank you so much for this. This was incredible.
Thank you so much. Thank you for helping me talk about it, because every time I do, it makes me a little bit lighter.
Thanks for leveling up with us today. Please share this episode if you found it helpful so others can join in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on future shows. And if you would leave me a 5-star review, I appreciate those so much. I read all of them, and it's how I know that I'm giving you information that you find valuable. And come interact with me over on Instagram at Natalie Jill Fit. I read all the direct messages and comments over there. Make it a great day, creating everything from nothing.